What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob Hardison, and today I'm going to give you two important ESC tuning options for you to play with at the track. Welcome back to, of course, the lovely Adrenaline RC YouTube channel, where today I'm going to be giving you two important ESC tuning options for you to be able to play with at the track to help, of course, get faster and faster. Now, to just get the cat out of the bag early on here, those two things are going to be your drive frequency and your brake frequency. Now, these are going to directly affect how the car feels around the track in the sense of its aggression, how quickly it accelerates to its maximum throttle, and then of course how quickly the full brake, whatever your brake force is set to, is applied. So this is something that, it's probably going to change as you go from, maybe a bigger, lower grip track to a smaller, higher grip track per se, or if, maybe the track just doesn't have a lot of run up for the jumps, vice versa. Whatever it may be, as you go to different, especially dramatically different surfaces and track styles, this will be something that you'll play with an okay amount, but not that you're going to change necessarily massive from one to the other. Now, drive frequency and brake frequency are both going to be measured in thousands. So you'll see on the Hobbywing program box, for example, or the Tekin one, whatever ESC you have, it'll be measured in 1K, 2K, 4K, 6K, 12K, and so on until whatever its maximum is. Now, before I hop into the program box and show you how to change those, I'm going to go over, of course, what that means. So basically, as you adjust your drive frequency from a 1K frequency to a 10K frequency, for example, your point A and point B are going to be the exact same. So your overall endpoint won't change at all. What does change, though, is going to be the amount of steps that it takes to get to that maximum. So even though point A and point B are the same, let's say at 1K, it's going to take 1,000 steps to get to point B, which is going to be a fairly big step, hypothetically speaking. Whereas, let's say you have a 10K drive frequency, well, then it's going to take 10,000 steps. So the steps become significantly smaller to go from one to the other because there are just so many more. So what that means is that the lower your drive frequency is, the more aggressive your throttle will be. The higher your drive frequency is, the less aggressive it's going to be. And it'll be the exact same thing for your brake frequency. Just like drive frequency, you'll have it measured in 1K to whatever. 1K, of course, being the most aggressive, and then whatever the maximum is. I've never gone to the max. Maybe it's 24K or something. I don't know. But it will make it smoother as you go higher and higher in those thousands because you have more and more steps. Now, the reason this is important, and I'll talk about the brake first, just because that's what we were just on a second ago. With brakes, the reason it's important is because if you have a really tight track that you're on, maybe you don't necessarily need more brake, but you want the brake to actuate faster because you need to get the car slowed down a little bit quicker. But you don't necessarily want to lose too much corner speed. Well, then you can turn your brake frequency down and then make it to where you get that little bit more aggression without actually making the car come to a full stop. Then, of course, like I said, you'll carry more corner speed, which then means your lap time will be a little bit faster. Now, on the throttle frequency end of things, let's say there's a short run up to a jump, so you need a little bit more rip. Well, then you can go to a lower one. You get that more aggression, but you do need to be slightly careful just because even though you're now able to have that extra acceleration to make the jump, maybe it's going to be too aggressive elsewhere. So it does take a little bit of a balancing act. Or for example, let's say the track is just really low grip. If you have your throttle frequency really aggressive, well, then you're just going to spin tires coming out. Whereas if you increase that frequency, well, then you're going to have a lot smoother acceleration. So the tires are actually going to be able to dig easier into the ground. And even though you're accelerating slower out of the motor, because you have more grip at the wheels, you're actually going to accelerate quicker out of the turn. And also, it will make it much easier to drive because the throttle isn't going to be so nearly aggressive. Now, obviously, there are going to be limits necessarily where, one is going to be maybe way too soft. It'll be easy to drive, but too soft. And then, of course, on the low end at that 1K, maybe it's just going to be way too aggressive. So traditionally for me, on the throttle end of things, I'll usually run somewhere in the 6K to 12K area, depending on track. And then on my brake frequency, usually I'll run that somewhere in the 6 to 10K area, just because I still want a semi-quick application of brake, but I want it to be smooth. That way I'm not locking the wheels up and I can carry as much speed around the track as possible, because that is of course going to be the most important thing, is going to be carrying speed. And that's something that I see a lot with cars out here at the track, during practice days or even on race days. Sometimes people will have me drive their cars and I'll try to go through a turn, and even though I'm not necessarily using a lot of brake, the car comes to this sudden stop, and then it's just this kind of jerky, non-flowy feel around the track. The car will break traction a little bit easier, so then you actually have a little bit of sliding, and then you're doing kind of a recovery / save rather than actually driving the car around the track. Because ultimately, you want to be in control of the car, not the car in control of you. So what this really, I guess, truly is at the end of the day is a balancing act to make it to where you as the driver feel more in control. That way, again, you can go faster around the track. So now I've gone over the spiel of what it is, and I'll give a little recap. Basically, as you lower your drive frequency down to something like 1K, you still have the same maximum endpoint. You're just going to get to that quicker. And if you increase that 1K to a 10K, again, those points are still the exact same. You're just taking a lot more steps to get to it, which will then result in a smoother overall feel around the track. So now that we've gone over our recap and gone over what each of these things do, in front of me is going to be, it'll be my body, but this is now my dad's Techno e-buggy. So I've got a Hobbywing speed control in here. So I'm going to use, of course, the Hobbywing program box, and I'll show you how to navigate that inside the actual card itself. But this is going to work for Hobbywing, Tekin, any of the high-end or just race speed controls in general. The interface might just look a little bit different, and then some of the numbers potentially will be slightly different from speed control to speed control. It just depends on what your system is. So without further ado, we'll spin you guys around and we'll show you how to adjust it. All right, so here we are with the car in front of us. And of course, in this specific situation with the Hobbywing speed control, we're gonna plug into this port here. I know some, like the Tekin, for example, will use the fan port. Each of them will have their own slightly different way to hook up, but in this case, that is how the Hobbywing will hook up. And then of course, on the box itself, you'll have your S plus and minus for your ESC. Your white wire, of course, will be your S. So what we'll go ahead and do is we'll get this plugged in. Now on the side of the speed control here, there will be a marking telling you what the orientation is. That way, of course, you don't get it incorrect. So we'll go ahead and we will plug this guy into its home. Maybe. Trying to see what I'm doing here. There we go. Now we're plugged in, so you can power this on. And I'll get that fan turned off in just a sec. I just gotta let this load up. You'll see it goes through its different screens. Let me go down to Smart Fan. There we go. We'll turn that off for just a moment. All right. So back into our home screen here, you'll see our parameter setting is where, of course, we're going to make our adjustment. So we'll go into that. It'll tell us what profile we're in. And then as you saw the first time, it did load up, but because it already loaded it up, I didn't need to redo that. So we'll scroll down here, slowly but surely. Throttle rate, curve. There it is, drive frequency. So you see right now, I have it set to 10K. So we select on that. You can see all of our different options here. And it looks like 32K is our maximum. 2K is our smallest. So this is, of course, going to be your amount of steps from point A to point B, with your 2K being the softest, 32K, or sorry, I had that backwards. 2K being the most aggressive, 32K being the softest. So you can see we're still on the more aggressive half of things because we're not anything higher than 16. 16 would be our halfway point. But I do like to set it at 10K for just a nice smooth acceleration. Occasionally, we'll drop down to something like the 6, but here for adrenaline, for example, 10K seems to be a very, very happy starting point. And then 8K, as you can see identified by the star on the side, is going to be the default. So we're just a little bit softer than what the default setting would be. Now, once you select what you want, of course, you'll press the save button, set up success, and that'll tell you that it is, of course, saved. Scrolling down now to our brake frequency. Just like before, all you do is select it, you scroll to whatever it is you want. This one you can get a little bit more aggressive at the 0.5K being the most aggressive. And then of course the star is going to identify our default, which is 1K. So this I do definitely go in very quickly. And as you can see, I've got it bumped up to the 8. And just like I said before, I usually run this somewhere in the 6 to 10K area. So the actual setting it up in the speed control, not too difficult at all, very, very simple to access. And then just like before, you just press save, your setup will be success, and then you can back out to the home screen. And actually before I power this off, we're gonna go back into here real quick. I'm gonna turn my smart fan back. Scroll all the way up. Where is it at? There it is. Save that. And then after I turn it back on, it'll power back up. But from this point, just got to power it off, unplug, and then I do recommend to do a recalibration after this, just so that way all of your endpoints from speed control to radio match one another. But with that being said, that is going to bring us to the conclusion of our video. I hope this has been helpful for you. We'll end off with a lovely view of Mr. Hardison's semi-dirty buggy from racing this weekend. If you guys have any questions or anything you want to see in the future, definitely leave them down below in the comments section. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.